Great Calamity's skill allows the user to go back to the item's past. The user can learn martial arts from the item's owner by returning to the item's past. Chinme asks him how he entered this phantom world, and if he died as well. Hyonu replies he is not dead, and asks him to stop talking to himself and tell him what is going on there. Chinme ignores him, and Hyonu thinks he needs to calm down, and thinks to assess the situation. He used the source of the Great Calamity's power and succeeded in meeting Chinme. He is not supposed to know who he is, but he recognizes him. He remembers he saw something along those lines, but he doesn't care because he came there to learn martial arts, and the one who could teach him was Chinme. He asks him to teach him some martial arts, but he asks him to get lost from there. He repeatedly asks him, but every time he asks him to get lost, he is getting angry but thinks he needs to be patient because he has no choice but to accept the consequences of his actions. It's so expected that he doesn't want to teach the person who killed him. He then requests him to teach him some martial arts, but Chinme asks him to get out of his sight and asks him if he was the one who was boasting about not needing a teacher and relying on his pathetic techniques. He asks him to go around just using his magic instead, and Hyonu shows him his own technique and asks if he wants a reminder of how pathetic these techniques really are. Chinme thinks it looks like he still possesses an unbelievable amount of magic, but in fact, his magic might even be stronger now. He smiles and says it was unfortunate that he died out of his hand, but it is not going to happen again, because he can't kill him now. Hyonu comes forward and tries to punch him, but Chinme blocks his hand. He appreciates him, saying he is faster than before and kicks him to make him fall. Hyonu couldn't see his attack and was shocked that Chinme had gotten faster than before. Chinme asks him if he wants him to continue, and Hyonu jumps upon him to attach him again, but he grabs his hand. This time he punches his stomach, and Hyonu wonders why it is so different from last time. Back then, he was able to stand his ground against him, and Chinme replies his power was restricted last time. Hyonu asks him what he meant by restricted, and he replies that it is because the last time they fought, he was a climber. He was stuck in that form so that he couldn't release his full power, and he asked him how much he knew about climbers. He also asks him if he knows how the climbers are ranked, and how they are trained. He replies that the climbers are ranked by their achievements, whether heroes who saved the world or demons who destroyed it. The tower only considers the climbers' achievements and then determines their rank, and Hyonu asks him if his powers were restricted when he became a mid-rank climber. Chinme exclaims he thought him to be a fool, but now he gets his point and says his fighting strength might be comparable to that of a high-rank climber, but there is no way of measuring that in the tower, so his powers were restricted. He then says he will teach him martial arts because he is so bored there, and Hyonu is surprised at how he suddenly changes his mind. He sets the condition that he will only teach if he is able to kill him, but Hyonu says if he kills him, he can't learn martial arts, so he will just beat him within an inch of his life. Chinme asks him to come over to him with all of his strength, even if he dies in this place. Hyonu won't die for real, and he will understand once he experiences it. He swings his sword and slashes Hyonu's body, and this is the first time he dies. On the other side, Ryun tells Seoyeok that Hyonu disappeared after touching Chinme's sword. They are worried about him, and Seoyeok thinks he is probably fine, but it would have been nice if he had told them beforehand. Supreme Dragon looks like an abandoned puppy, and she angrily asks him why he is looking towards her. Seoyeok thinks her personality changes so much when Hyoni is not there, and it would be better for him to avoid her. He turns backward and gets scared to see Ryung's guards there. He wonders how many times they will do this because he even can't relax at home. He thinks he is leaving as soon as his apartment is rebuilt. Suddenly, an aura emits from the bag Hyonu took from Martin, and Ryung can hear its voice. Ryung wonders if she is the only one who can hear that voice. They don't seem to be using magic, and she thinks if this weren't one of Hyonu's possessions, she would have dealt with it already. But the bag talks with her and says she should be able to control its power, and she asks him about what it is talking about. It is the Devil Queen inside the bag, and he says she doesn't need to be so wary of him because he can't do anything if she rejects his offer. She introduces herself as the master of all monsters, the Divine Spectral Queen. At the same time, Hyonu is fighting with Chinme, but every time, he dodges his attack and makes him fall. He exclaims that Hyonu's attacks are too basic, and slashes his sword one more time. Hyonu shouts at him, asks him to stop, and says he should give him some tips after teaching him martial arts. Chinme said he couldn't die in this phantom world, and Hyonu asked him how many times he had killed him. Chomer replies he has killed him about 100 times, and he is satisfied with this. He exclaims he has vented enough, asks him to go back, and asks him if he still wants to fight him. He asks him to go back because he can't defeat him, and Hyonu is angry because he had 100 fights, and 100 losses. Chinma is really strong, and he is not the kind of person who would give up on martial arts even if he is cornered. He has significant weaknesses and no special skills. There is no way he can beat him, but he is determined to beat him soon and will go back after beating him. He asks him not to underestimate him because he might be winning now, but he never knows what can happen. Chinma shakes his head and says he is just acting tough, and Hyunwoo says they will find out soon. He tries to concentrate and focus on just one thing, which is beating Chinma. He quickly rushes toward him, and he takes out his sword one more time thinking it is getting annoying. But this time he lands his punch on him, but he reacts suddenly and dodges him and thinks something has changed about him. He is attacking as soon as he revives, but he kills him again, and this is 103rd time. Soon, the counting reaches 120 times, and after a lot of attempts, the counting reaches 700 times. He thinks this level of magic amplification won't be able to slow him down, and Chinma says he won't be able to accomplish anything if he hasn't awoken his yin and yang. His movements can't even be considered martial arts, and it's ridiculous for him to try and use his techniques against him. He kills him again, but he thinks death and mockery aren't enough to stop him. He remembers his past and thinks he has never given up, even when he was trapped in the tutorial tower for 12 years. So, he will not give up this time. He is fighting him again and again, and Chinma thinks he is more reckless than he thought. This is the Phantom World, and it's a place where climbers who have failed can stay until their next opportunity arises. No one dies here, and in fact, it's impossible to die in this world. It's a realm where the concept of life and death has been removed by the system. The rules state that only the owner of this world can enter this realm, but somehow, Hyunwoo found a way in. What he said took Chinma by surprise, and he never expected to hear those words from someone who had killed him. He wondered whether he had lost his mind, but he agreed to his request. However, he added an impossible condition, and he had no intention of teaching him martial arts from the very beginning. Though his request was ridiculous, he was bored, so he thought he would teach him a lesson. That's what he thought at the start, but when he had killed him about 100 times, he still felt a sense of satisfaction. He could see his arrogant and scornful attitude had been replaced by a newfound respect. But Hyunwoo is still annoying him, and is not ready to give up, and now he started to fight him seriously. When he killed him 200 times, he thought it was a lot of fun watching him die without standing a chance against him. When he killed him 400 times, he mocked him for being unable to last even 3 seconds against him. When he killed him 700 times, it was quite gratifying to destroy him over and over again. When he killed him 1,000 times, he completely crushed his so-called martial arts. He felt certain about one thing, and he was sure he wouldn't be able to get back up after he had utterly destroyed him. However, he got back up again, and an unfamiliar feeling bubbled up inside him, which felt quite unpleasant. He could barely survive his attacks for even a few seconds, but he wondered why he was getting so worked up. He doubted and questioned himself, and then after killing him 2,900 times, he realized what that feeling was. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced for a very long time, and it was something he had experienced just once since he became a climber. And that feeling was an unmistakable sense of danger. He gets tired and thinks if this boy will ever give up, but he decides to destroy him completely and thinks he won't be able to get up ever again. This time, Hyunwoo dodges his attack and punches his neck, and it took him exactly 2,995 to try to punch him. Hyunwoo again rushes toward him saying nothing is impossible, and attacks him again. On the other side, the Monkey King is practicing when the Azure Lion appears there and asks him if he is done already. He gets up and asks him what took him so long, and it has already been 3 months since he took care of that lizard. He asks him about his comrades, the Great Peng, and the White Elephant, and he replies that they will be late. In the meantime, the Great Peng and the White Elephant reach there and the lion asks him if everything is okay, and they reply that the West has been completely wiped out, and the same goes for the East. The Monkey King shakes his head and says it's funny how they have already earned a seat, but it took them 5 months to destroy just one region. The Azure Lion says he was recognized for all his achievements and received a high rank as a climber, but they are simply known as the 3 demon kings of Lion Camel Ridge. One of them is the predator who once devoured 100,000 members of the Heavenly Arms to satisfy his hunger, the Azure Lion. The second one is the tusked beast that can wrap her trunk around anything and devours mythical creatures, the White Elephant. The last one is a ruler of the skies, who once invaded a country and devoured its royalty, its nobles, and the remaining population, the Great Peng. These achievements alone grant them mid-rank climber status. The Monkey Kong asks them to make a plan before they climb the tower and reach the next layer. The Azure Lion asks him if they need to work out the same way as always, and he replies that he will take the south. Azure Lion heads to the north, White Elephant conquers the east, and Great Peng can destroy the west. He asks them to make sure they do this within 2 months, and they are ready to attack the next layer. The next morning, Suoyok receives a call from the team leader, who informs him about an emergency and also asks him about Hyonu. He informs about a disaster warning, and in 3 hours, a disaster will strike in Korea. On the other side, Young sits sadly in the same position and is watching Hyonu's sword. Meanwhile, the battle between Hyonu and Chinmaya continued since time held no meaning in this phantom world. The tally of wins and losses became the only meaningful frame of reference. Hyonu is trying again and again, and his kicks are getting better than before, but he is still far weaker than Chinmaya and has been killed by him again. Chinmaya thinks he is just a fool because this marks the 5,000th time, while Hyonu asks him why he made a bet with a fool. He wonders how he can push himself this far, and this is the 5,000th time he has killed him. But Hyonu hasn't taken a single break, and he wonders how someone can fight 5,000 times when they know they are going to lose. He must have experienced the despair of starting over from the beginning, and he started using Divine Lightning after he killed him 3,200 times. He kills him again, but he still has a will to fight, and Chinmaya goes near him and says he has caught him again and calls him a rabid dog. Chinmaya's sense of danger is long gone, and it has been now replaced by respect. Chinmaya started off as a nobody and rose to claim the title of being equal to the heavens, and he ran into many different kinds of people while climbing the tower. But it is the first time he is meeting with someone like Hyonu, and if he were to define him, he would say Hyonu is a man with an unbreakable spirit. He has fought everyone from lowly vagabonds to the strongest warriors in the world, but everyone lost the will to fight him after he defeated their martial arts. However, Hyonu keeps taking him on even though he knows he doesn't stand a chance against him. After dying for the 1,000th time, he will challenge him the 1,001st time, even if he destroys everything he has worked towards. But he will get up again. It seems like he doesn't know how to give up, and this is the reason he is starting to respect him, not as a fighter, but from one man to another. In the meantime, Hyonu rushes to attack him from behind, but he grabs him and says his instant movement is awkward and his form is poor. He tells him 3 principles he has to follow in order to use instant movement, and shows him how to use instantaneous movement. He explains that it is not a flashy skill for martial arts, and he has to see it for what it is, that it is now how he uses it. He forbids him to copy his footwork right now and to focus on the 3 basics first. First, Divine Lightning is very different from other martial arts skills, and he might be able to imitate it, but he won't be able to replicate its true power. Moreover, the lightning isn't what is important, and he has to integrate the lightning into the magic that flows through his body in a way that feels natural. By saying this, he kills him 8,000nd time and explains once the lightning has completely fused with his magic, then he can create the right form, and this will become his foundation for any situation that arises. By teaching and instructing him, he has killed him many times, and even he doesn't remember how many times he has been killed. He thinks every step he takes feels different now, and this is the true power of martial arts. Chinmaya asks him to destroy the form that he has created, and with this, he kills him 10,821st time. Chinmaya explains the energy and skills he has integrated into his body will stay with him no matter what movements he makes from now on. He has killed him 14,000 times, and Hyonu now gets that the lightning is produced naturally by the magic that is flowing evenly through all the magic channels in his body. The Divine Lightning is maintained using magic, which is produced by combining several different principles with divine energy. He now realizes that it is the perfect skill, and Chinmaya says this is the final step since he has mastered the Divine Lightning form and destroyed it. All that's left is for him to develop his own style now, and Hyonu thinks before he faced off against him, he probably would have said something like what he is talking about. His teachers were all imaginary people, and he had no way of knowing if he had any problems, and his martial arts progress had come to a halt. But now, he understands what he is talking about, and Chinmaya asks him to rush toward him. At the same time, at the International Hunters Association control room in the United States, there is a huge mess, and everyone is talking about hunters. According to their estimate, they have about 10 minutes, and Liam is also present there and thinks he wasn't that worried when a disaster-level threat was detected in the US 31 hours ago because he had Hunter Hyonu Kim. But a few hours later, disaster-level threats were detected in Thailand and Mexico, and also in Korea. There are now 4 different countries facing disaster-level threats, and Hyonu is just one person. He asks his assistant about the situation in each country, and he informs him that Thailand and Mexico have called the top guild and S-rank hunters both at home and abroad. They have prepared hunters Traum, Riley, and the big-name guild on their side. Liam seems worried and says for now, the disaster they are facing there is their top priority. And he is worried about Korea because their disaster warning was late. But that is the place where Hyunwoo lives, so there should be no need to worry. He thinks he is usually hard to reach, so this should be fine. And as long as he hasn't left this world, he will fight. On the other side, Seoyeok tells his friend that Hyunwoo is not there, and the easiest way to explain this is that he is currently no longer in this world. He has been keeping it a secret in case it causes a commotion, but it has been almost a month since he disappeared. Now things have gotten to this point. They can't keep waiting for him since they don't know when he is coming back, and they will have to deal with this disaster on their own. He calls Supreme Dragon and asks her what she is going to do, but she remains silent and doesn't answer him. At the same time, Chinma has killed him 14,242 times, and after that, he has stopped dying, because he is not letting him kill him anymore, while Chanam seems happy to see that he has mastered his technique. He is no longer just gathering his magic for the show, but those black wings are proving his power, and that black orb is the embodiment of the principles. He then jumps upon his to attack, but Chinma blocks him with his sword, and he is surprised that he is getting pushed back by his attack. He then punches him and makes him fall to distance, and he is surprised by his smile even after being killed thousands of times. After that, Hyunwoo jumps upon him, and this time, Chinma is unable to block his attack and is ready to die. However, Hyunwoo jumps back and doesn't kill him, and when he inquires him about this, he replies a student shouldn't kill high teacher. Chinma refuses and says he doesn't make him his student and asks him to get lost if he has done so because he couldn't even rest properly because of him. Hyunwoo smirks and says he wouldn't stay even if he asked him to, and leaves thanking him for everything and calling him a creepy teacher. When he is left, Chioma smiles and thinks he is just a fool, but he is feeling better teaching a student after dying. At the same time, in Montana, United States, someone is getting out of the wing and appears in the sky. As soon as he gets out of it, they throw a large number of attacks toward him, and there is a sudden explosion there. But the Monkey King appears there and says he has received a grand welcome. He was going to use his clones to wipe them out, but they have made him change his mind. The hunter informs the control office and informs them that their attacks are not working on a disaster-class monster. Meanwhile, the Monkey King reaches her and grabs her satellite phone, and says it's come down to this, and he will personally take on all of them. He then jumps upon them to attack while they are still confused to see him. On the other side, in Bangkok, Thailand, the Great Peng has caused destruction and thinks this layer is just as uncivilized as the last one, and they didn't even stand a chance against him. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo appears there and asks who he is, but he counter-questions him how he can challenge him after seeing what he can do. He then rushes to attack him furiously and says he will enjoy killing him slowly, and Hyunwoo says he doesn't know what he is talking about, but he knows one thing: he is a climber. He uses his divine lightning technique and kills him in just an instant, and a notification appears there saying he has killed one of the 3 demon kings of Lion Camel Ridge. He wonders why he is in Thailand when he should be in Korea. At the same time, at Uijeongbu, Korea, the Azure Lion has attacked them, and Seok Seoyeon and Seoyeok are all in a very bad condition. He asks them if they really think they can penetrate his hide with that kind of attack. He is about to kill Seoyeok when Ryung appears there and attacks him. He exclaims that she amused him a little because she is different from others. However, he attacks her and makes her fall at a distance, and she is also shocked to see his power level. Hyunwoo goes to see Av, and she informs him that climbers have appeared and are wreaking havoc across the world, and it hasn't been that long since they appeared. He asks her if it is possible for 4 climbers to appear at the same time. She replies that the Divine Spectral Queen was able to bring her underlings with her, but this is an extremely unfortunate set of coincidences. She states that there is a high probability that there is a ringleader this time, and climbers can bring others with them depending on their achievements. There should be a leader among this group of 4, which means someone is going around with 3 other climbers. It's possible if they are a high-rank climber because their strength must go beyond disaster class. Hyunwoo thinks he came here to ask why he ended up in Thailand, but that's not important right now. He asks her if he defeats the leader, the other climber will disappear, and she shows him the place where the leader is currently. He thinks the simplest solution would be to go and defeat the leader, but he is worried about his friends and thinks what will happen to them if he goes there. Even though Ryung is there, they still won't be strong enough to take on a climber. At the same time, in Korea, Ryung is also injured, and Suoyok badly thinks about Hyonu and wishes that he come there to save them. He then remembers what he told them earlier, that they can deal with this on their own strength, but now he is looking for Hyonu to save them and thinks this is all happening because they are too weak. Meanwhile, Ryung gets up again, but her martial arts aren't working against him, and all of the confidence that Hyonu passed down to her has been shattered. She remembers when he told her that the Emperor's style is powerful, and if it doesn't work against other people, then she has to blame her own weakness. She thinks she never thought of herself as strong, and the only person she considers to be strong is her teacher. She always thought people who were weaker than her were trash, and this thinking made her weak. She always idolized strength and rested on her laurels, and never thought to improve herself. The Azure Lion approaches her and says it is time to end this. He says she should feel honored because she is about to witness how he devoured 100,000 soldiers of the Heavenly Army. He releases a large amount of mana, and Ryung wonders what she should do now. She hears the voice of the Divine Queen, and she says it looks like she needs some help. She says she will help her if she accepts her power. Ryung refuses her offer because her teacher once told her that great power always comes at great cost. She is surprised that she refuses her powers and says she will lend her power for free only this time. She asks him to give it the go as the queen of all monsters and the leader of Pandemonium. She hereby grants her the divine spectral queen's power. She uses her technique to freeze, and the Azure Lion is unable to expand his mouth anymore. He asks her who she is, and Ryung replies it is too late for him and she will devour all of his magic. She uses her 10-step technique and starts taking her steps, and the Azure Lion can't move his body, and he feels like his body is shattering. Meanwhile, Seok takes Soyona and Soyok to a side, and she asks him why he is trying to prove himself a big shot when he is barely worth anything. She takes her 6th step, and he exclaims if his achievements had been recognized, then the likes of her wouldn't stand a chance against him. She takes her 7th step, reaches him, and says he is just like her and he is not the only climber who was assigned the wrong rank. If all her achievements had been properly acknowledged, she would have introduced herself differently. She takes her 9th step and says she wouldn't have been known as the Divine Spectral Queen. She takes her 10th step and completes the destruction, saying she would have been called the goddess of all monsters. At the same time, in Mexico City, the white elephant is unable to move her body all of a sudden, and someone appears behind her and says she goes a bit overboard. The white elephant thinks it is the same voice she heard before, and asks what she did to her. And this is Hyonu's student who has used Mason's skill on her and says she has learned a pretty useful technique recently. The white elephant calls her an evil bitch, and she says she doesn't want to hear this from the monster who just destroyed a city. However, she thanks her because she took care of all the people she was going to kill anyway, and now she has become her test subject. The white elephant gets scared to hear this and asks who she is, and she introduces herself as S-grade hunter ranker 4th worldwide, the Shadow Assassin. She tells her about her test, which is the test to measure the effectiveness of the Keeper of Words ability. On the other side, Seoyin gets into consciousness in a hospital, and she gets up, shouts, and asks Seok about others. He is not sure either, but thinks the climber that appeared in Korea has been dealt with, and apparently, Seoyok carried them to the hospital. He also heard that he had just patched up his severe injury before leaving, and she calls him at the moment, but he doesn't respond. Seok thinks he must have had his reasons, but on the other side, he is on a rooftop in a state of disappointment and thinks the only thing he could do was run away. Suddenly, he hears footsteps behind him and is shocked to see the person appear there. At the same time, in Montana, United States, the Monkey King is causing colossal destruction and wonders if there is something wrong because 300 clones should be enough to take down the 9th layer. Since each clone is as strong as a low-rank climber, half of his clones are destroyed instantly. In the meantime, Hyonu comes near him, asks if he is the real one, and tries to punch him, but the Monkey King grabs his arm. He asks him about who he is, but Hyoni kicks him and makes him fall. He picks up his weapon and instructs him to grow, and it turns into a large stick. He then attacks Hyonu with this, and Hyonu dodges it and jumps backward. The Monkey King calls him an exciting guy. Hyonu laughs and says he is a zookeeper and has come there to take care of zoo animals like him. The Monkey King is impressed by his bravery and asks if he is lost in his mind, while Hyonu says he feels pumped because he has never tamed a monkey before. Meanwhile, he receives the notification about the death of the other 2 climbers, and he doesn't know how they were defeated, but right now, he just wants to see the results of his training. The Monkey King tries to attack him again by growing his stick, but Hyonu reaches him and grabs it. But it grows into a more giant stick than before and also destroys many surrounding buildings. The Monkey King thinks he has defeated Hyonu and says it was all talk about him, but he appears from the ground and grabs his leg. He pulls his leg, makes him fall, and says he has made him a fool. He asks if this is the best he can do as a high-rank climber, while the Monkey King is surprised by his powers. He wonders where this monster has come from, and when he first climbs the tower, he has no difficulty clearing the various layers. Now that he has been acknowledged as Sun Wukong, it should be easier this time. Hyunwoo interrupts him and asks why he is suddenly so quiet or if he gets scared of him. Meanwhile, he thinks this guy's strength isn't something he would typically see on the 9th layer. He exclaims he has left him with no choice, and now he will show him a skill that is a waste to use on this layer. He unlocked his achievement and asked Hyunwoo to watch him closely, and he would show him the true power of the saint who controls the heavens, the Monkey King, also known as the Great Sage, heaven's equal. He gathers immense power and throws a strike toward Hyunwoo, but he uses his divine lightning technique and undoes his strike in just one blow. The Monkey King is shocked to see the failure of his technique, while Hyunwoo says he can do that too. At the same time, other hunters and Liam at the International Hunter Association control room and watching their fighting shockingly. The Monkey King keeps striking him, but Hyunwoo says it will not work on him. He asks him if he is only focusing on the lightning, then how he will deal with his attacks. By saying this, he is landing multiple attacks on him and says it's too late for the Monkey King to get hold now. He then uses his Asura's Flare Blast technique, and his magic starts expanding, and Hyunwoo attacks him again and again. After massive destruction, the Monkey King gets seriously injured, and he wonders if he loses to someone from this layer. Hyunwoo smiles and says he is not bad for a monkey, but he gets furious and asks him not to look down on him since he is the Great Sage. He makes decisions and thinks if this means he can't climb the tower, then he will make sure that he takes him down. He uses a copying technique that causes a lot of Monkey Kings to appear there. He then furiously says he will kill him and rushes to attack him, saying this is the end for him. He uses his technique 18 deadly golden lightning strikes and throws an attack toward him, and this causes an immense amount of destruction. The destruction affects a large number of buildings, and when the smoke disappears, he wonders if he got him. Soon, he is shocked to see Hyunwoo in the sky in an unharmed state, and he reaches him in no time. He remembers what Chinma told him: the true principle of reversal is internal, not external, and a strike itself doesn't involve releasing all his strength in one go. He must be in complete control and has to judge it perfectly, and even if he understands the fundamentals, he will only be able to use this skill once he has mastered them. He revises all the instructions given by him and uses his last technique, the Destruction Strike, and punches him badly. There is a large amount of energy spread everywhere, and when it gets fade, Hyunwoo has defeated him. He receives a notification that he has found and defeated a climber, and his status scan level is now Meg high rank. He feels his body is light, and his magic is flowing smoothly, and thinks he managed to defeat a climber without getting hurt this time. Last time, he defeated a climber and was in the hospital for 2 or 3 days. He can now clearly see the result of his training, and he picks up the Monkey King's staff lying on the ground and uses his technique to check its stats. This staff has the property to extend, shorten, energy, and shrink, and he thinks he will read the description later. For now, he needs to find somewhere with a working phone. He starts walking towards a side and thinks this is roughly the right direction to get to the International Hunters Association. He extends the staff and jumps upon it to reach the other side. The next day, at the International Hunters Association, he thanks Liam for lending him those clothes. He likes the outfit, but he is just shocked to see that he is completely unharmed after a battle like that. Last day, he just appeared out of nowhere, and he was shocked to see him because he thought he was a climber at first. Hyunwoo asks him if all the climbers have disappeared and if Korea hasn't taken that much damage, and he states that he has a request for him. After that, Suoyok reads the news articles about him that he stopped the disaster, and they come to visit Suoyok, who has currently gone to get tested. Suoyok asks him if he ended up in Thailand, and then how he reached the United States, and he replies that he just ran away and swam. Suoyok is shocked to hear this, and he tells him that he basically did an Iron Man triathlon by himself. He asks him if he was trained by Chinma by using his sword. In the meantime, Soyeon enters the room, when she hears Suoyok asking him if he can go to Chinma to get trained. She asks him why he is asking this all of a sudden, and he replies that he feels so helpless. She shouts at him and asks why he left without saying anything yesterday, and that she was so worried about him. He tells her that he is just so angry about how weak he is, and she says the Azure Lion was strong because he was a climber. He exclaims that it is not just about Azure Lion, but he is also thinking about the Supreme Dragon. Soyeon doesn't know what happened because she passed out, but when she saw the footage later, she had to admit that she was extremely powerful. Before she just thought that Hyunwoo was absurdly strong and didn't think too much about it, but after experiencing it firsthand, she had changed her mind. Soyeok says he wants to be able to protect the things that matter to him, so he wants to try and get stronger even if it's just a little. Soyeon asks him if something happened because he never looked so disappointed before, but he says nothing. Hyunwoo thinks it is good that he wants to get stronger, but he remembers Chunma's condition that he would only teach him if he is able to kill him. He wonders if Chunma will be able to teach him properly, and he says Soyeok doesn't need to go there straight away. He will recharge the labyrinth gauge and then give it to him. Soyeon tells them that the doctors asked her to leave the hospital. Soyeok asks Hyunwoo how much stronger he has become after going to the Phantom World, or if his average stats have changed. He remembers that he hasn't checked his status window, and when he checks it, he finds out that it hasn't changed that much. But soon, he gets shocked to see that the status window is showing his age 118 years, and he immediately goes to Av's room to ask her about this. He changes the room structure, and she is happy that the status scan skill has leveled up, and the room has increased in size. Hyunwoo says it seems like she is more excited about getting the room than him winning. He then asks her about his age shown on the status window, and she replies that the status window has probably factored in the time he spent in the Phantom World. Despite the fact that only a month has passed in the real world, there is a difference between the time spent in the Phantom World and how time flows in the tower. She gives him an example that a day in this world can be a year in that world, and he has suddenly become an old geezer, and this is the only explanation she can give him right now. Hyunwoo thinks this means he was beaten up for 100 years, and it is not an error, but he is actually 118 years old. However, he is relaxed because it is the same as the tutorial tower, so he is used to it. And he is not an old geezer anyway. He asks her if she found out anything new about the tutorial tower, and she replies that she learned something about the creator of the tutorial tower. She exclaims that the creator of the tutorial tower is the creator, while Hyunwoo is waiting for her to say something else. He gets angry on hearing this while Av says she tried really hard to get that information for him, and he thinks he shouldn't have expected too much from her. But she minds his statement and asks him to give her 7 days, and she will find the location of the creator for him. She can't say for sure but requests him to give her 7 days, and he agrees to leave this to her. After that, when he comes back, Ryung tells her that the Divine Spectral Queen's essence spoke to her and lent her powers. He checks her stats and her name shows with the word successor, and he thinks he can guess what that means. He thinks he can still feel the climber's powers in the 9th layer, one in Korea and the other in Mexico, and he thinks the power that Av felt in Korea is from the Divine Spectral Queen. But he wonders who can be in Mexico, or if there is also a successor there, and he remembers that Mason was also killed in Mexico. He wonders if this is related to her death or if there is someone who killed him there. He is thinking about these things, while Ryung thinks he is angry because she touched his belongings without his permission. He gets up and taps her head saying she did really good work in his absence, and without her, everyone would have died. She gets happy and thanks her teacher for appreciating her. On the other side, at the Internation Hunter Association, the 8 Lake Port, Montana congressman comes to Liam and says the staff belonging to the Monkey King now is the property of the state of Montana. It is said that 8 Lake Port is not particularly talented or popular, but he is unbelievably rich. He also heard that he likes to collect rare artifacts as a hobby, but he didn't expect him to come after the staff as well. Liam exclaims that Hyunwoo was responsible for preventing the disaster in Montana, so it belongs to him. 8 Lek gets angry and says his guild, Eclipse, also contributed to it, and says he just needs to have a word with Hyunwoo in private. He will take care of the arrangements on his side. In the meantime, Hyunwoo enters the room and asks what they are talking about him behind his back. He asks 8 Lek to say it one more time and asks him what he is going to do with his staff. 8 Lek asks him if he is Hunter Hyunwoo Kim, and Hyunwoo thinks he left the staff with Liam for a little while because he said he needed to hold on to it as a formality. But it looks like it has now attracted some unaware attention. 8 Lek introduces himself and says he is one of Montana's congressmen, and Hyunwoo says he doesn't need to repeat himself because he overheard what he said earlier. He exclaims he was the one who prevented the disaster, but he claims that he also suffered some losses, and now that he has struck a secret deal behind his back. 8 Lek says he seems well informed, and Hyunwoo asks what he will do if he doesn't give the staff, and he replies that he will be forced to take action against him. Liam gets scared to see the hot situation and immediately calls 911, and soon there is a large sound of beating someone. After some time, 8 Lek is on the ground and is crying, and asks Hyunwoo if he really thinks he can get away with this, and he will completely crush his hunter career. But Hyonu slams his head and says he has earned more than enough even without being a hunter, and asks Liam not to worry because he hasn't killed him. He asks him what he is supposed to do about this, but Hyonu asks him to give back his staff. The next day, Eitlek is furious and asks his secretary to spread false rumors about Hyonu, and asks him to make them up and knock him off. The driver asks him if he has taught something yet, and the secretary seems angry with his boss and asks him if he should get rid of Eitlek. The driver says he has been working under him for 10 years now, but he didn't get anything in return for helping him. They have dedicated themselves to their leader and to their organization Illumidi. On the other side, at Hanam, Gyeonggi province, Hyonu gives Suoyak a band and says he will see a status window if he places it on Chinma's sword. He has created a magic circle to go to Mexico, and Suoyak asks him why he wants to go there since there might not be much to see there since they are busy rebuilding their country. He replies that there is something he wants to double check there. Av gave him a brief explanation about successors, and it's not unusual for successors to appear, and the problem is that they don't know where they might appear. It is the principle that climbers climb the tower and guardians stop the climbers, and they both have their designated roles. However, it's not the same for successors. They all have their own motives, and some of them successors choose to protect their worlds like guardians. Other successors opted to become climbers and climb the tower, and some of them decided not to do everything with their power, while others chose to use their power to rule over their worlds. In any case, the main takeaway is that being a successor isn't necessarily a bad thing. He gives Ryung the Spectral Queen's essence and says she can have it. The more people they have who can take on climbers, the better it is. Moreover, she is not the type of person who would go off the rails just because she is stronger now. Meanwhile, Anya calls him and says she has finished drawing the magic circle, and he turns back and says to Ryung that he trusts her. He asks her to wait for him until he returns, and he asks Soyeok if he is going head straight to the Phantom World. He uses the magic circle to go to Mexico and asks Soyeok to give her regards to Chinma. He also tells him that he is putting the martial arts he taught him to good use. After some time, he reaches Mexico City, but there is really nothing there, and he wonders how he is supposed to find traces of a successor there. Meanwhile, a guard appears there and says he has been waiting for him. He is surprised to see a one-eye mark there, and he asks her permission to escort him to their leader. On the other side, Suoyak receives a notification if he wants to activate the source of the Great Calamity's power using Chinma's sword. He thinks it hasn't been that long since his apartment was rebuilt, but he is already leaving. Hyonu said that Chinma is a douchebag, so it's a good idea not to annoy him, and if Hyonu told him this, it means he is worse than Hyonu. However, he makes a decision and reaches the Phantom World, and Chinma asks him about who he is. He is shocked that he is really standing in front of Chinma, and he wonders what he should tell him about Hyonu. But later he thinks he should stop relying on Hyonu, and he states that he is there to learn martial arts. Chinma gets annoyed and asks where on earth people like him keep on popping up, and this happened before as well. Suddenly, he remembers something and asks if he knows Hyonu, and he replies that he is his friend. He gets angry on this and says he finally managed to fall asleep and now this is how he messes with him, and Suoyak thinks he won't be able to pass on his message to him. Chinma asks him to get lost because someone like him won't be able to learn anything from him anyway. But Suoyak remembers all the failures he received last time and requests him to teach him just this time. He states that he has things he needs to protect, so he needs to get stronger. If he keeps turning him down, then he will just keep bothering him until he gives up. Chinma says he is surprised that they know each other and that he is just as bad as he was, and if that's what he wants, then he will treat him the same way he treated him. He then rushes toward him and says if he can do this, then he will teach him martial arts, and with his first attack, Suoyak Kim died for the first time. On the other side, Hyonu is surprised to see a man so obedient in front of him and asks him what he will do if he doesn't want to go with him. The man says he will return and await new instructions, and says it would be best if he went to meet their leader in person. Hyonu thinks he is not going to tell him anything there, and he doubts they will be a threat to him. There is a chance that their leader is the same person that I've mentioned, and he agrees to accompany him. He takes him to an elevator that takes them to their base, and he wonders to see the jewels used to decorate the elevator. They go deep down the building towards the base, and when the elevator opens, he is shocked to see that all the men present their bow before him. The shadow assassin is also present there and says they have been waiting for him for so long, and he is shocked to see his second student there. He remembers he used to have two students, one was Ryung, and the other student was the shadow assassin. He remembers the day when he first met her in the tower, and they were in a very bad condition. Her companions told her that they couldn't leave the tower with their current skills, and they were ready to betray her because she was weak. In the meantime, Hyunwoo reached there and took them away. And that was the day Narin, the shadow assassin, met her teacher. His relationship with her was a little strange, and she felt more like a companion than a student. Although he trained her as hard as he trained Ryung, he didn't feel this way about her from the start. But the longer she stayed in the tower, the more natural he felt for her to be his companion. She stayed by his side for a year and a half, and before leaving the tower, she promised him to make sure to prepare everything he wanted. She tells him that she killed Mason, and they were going to kill him before he could do anything to him, but they weren't strong enough back then. He asks her why she built a fortress underground, and she replies that he told her that he would like it, and he said that it would be cool if someone built a fortress underground. In addition to that, she had prepared everything he could ever want, and for starters, they own around 1.8 million square feet of land in the United States, and they have built villas in all the countries in Europe. On top of that, they have an endless supply of cash, casinos, and a lot of many things. Hyunwoo interrupts her and asks when he said that he wanted all of that, and he remembers when she asked him what he wanted to do once they had escaped the tower. He replies that there are a lot of things he wants to do, and he wants to be able to sleep in all the time, lead a life of leisure, and maybe live like someone from a mega rich family. He wants to live a life of luxury, and wants to go traveling all the time and party hard in one of his villas. Moreover, it would be nice to have an underground vacation home too, and he is shocked that she really prepared all of those pie-in-the-sky ideas that he reeled off without thinking. He tries to use the skill of mind access on her, and there is only one thing in her mind, which is her master, and he thinks she is not normal just like Ryung. He uses the skill of status scan to check her status, and it says she is also the successor and all the other stats are similar to Ryung. He asks her if she used Mason's book after killing him and has become a successor. He asks her about the power she has gained and asks what she will do with it. He thinks she is now capable of becoming a climber or a guardian, and she shouldn't want to oppose him, considering what he saw via the mind access skill. But it's not like he can fully trust the system either. If she does decide to become a climber, then he will have to kill her. But she asks him how she should use her powers because she has dedicated her powers to him, so she will only use it to serve her. Hyunwoo says she is the one who killed the climber and thinks she is the perfect opponent to test his new successor skills on. He asks her if she defeated him using her new skills, and she replies that she also used her unique skill, Overlap, to defeat her. He says it must have been a tough fight and the surrounding area has been completely destroyed, and she says it wasn't that hard and she intentionally took her time taking her down. She remembers him telling her this before, that once he had money, he would buy an entire town and build whatever he wanted within it. She says they now have the money and the resources, and all that's left to do now is to build whatever he likes. Hyunwoo thinks she is even worse than Ryung was at the start. Later he asks her why she hasn't come and visited him yet, and she replies that she wants to come and see him after she has finished preparing everything she wants, and she is controlling all the negative information and gossip about him. He is now sure that she is not normal, and he wonders why his all students are like this when he is perfectly normal. However, he gets up and says he is leaving, while she asks him about the things she prepared for him, and he says he will check them out later. She then asks him if she can escort him to the outside, and he agrees. When they come outside, he asks her why she is following him, and she replies that it's only right for her to take her place beside her master. He asks her about the organization she leads, and she states that it's already grown enough to stay up and running in her absence. He thinks she is talking like Ryung, but there is no harm in bringing her along and asks her to stand in the center of the magic circle. And changed the magic circle to make it a world by feeding it magic, and even if she is not there, it is really convenient. On the other side, at Hanam, Gyeonggi Province, the spectral queen is calling Ryung again and again, but she acts like she can't listen to her. After that, she says she is thinking about the condition she gave to her, and thinks her teacher was willing to give her the divine spectral queen's essence. But she shouldn't make a rash decision. She doesn't have any idea what tricks she might have up her sleeves and asks her to repeat her offer again. The spectral queen asks if she is trying to wear her down by asking her again, and says she will share all of her senses with her. Secondly, if she ever encounters any strange ghosts, during that moment, she will have to give her control of her body. Ryung asks her if she were to share all her senses with her and if this means she can get total control of her body whenever she wants. The queen exclaims this is impossible and she had already told her about this. Ryung thinks the conditions aren't bad, but that just makes her even more suspicious. In the meantime, Hyunwoo comes back and she is happy to see him, but she is surprised to see another girl with him. She asks him who the girl next to him is, and Hyunwoo asks Narin why she is holding his hand, and she replies she is just doing what he told her to do. Ryung shouts at her and asks her to get away from her teacher, and Hyunwoo asks both of them to get introduced to each other. He introduced Ryung as his first student, and Narin as his second student. Ryung doesn't seem happy to hear that, but she controls her emotions in front of him, and says she never heard anything about him having a second student. Hyunwoo asks Narin to get away from him, but she continues to do this and says she is just happy after seeing him after a long time. Ryung then goes to Spectral Queen and says she accepts her conditions, and she is surprised at her sudden change of mind. She just feels like she needs to get stronger soon. After some time, Hyunwoo reaches Av's room and is surprised to see all the mess there while she is busy watching TV. He asks her if she has found something, but she doesn't even remember what he asked her to find out. He takes the remote and is about to change the room when she shouts and says she has found something. First, it is unfortunate, but she wasn't able to find the creator's location, and no matter how hard she looks, the status scan's access is limited. Instead, she has found another clue and discovered a place where he might be able to find an artifact that could potentially give them the location of the creator. The next morning, at Soyeon's guild, she left some papers inside, but she didn't want to go because of Ryung and Narin's fighting. She calls Hyunwoo and asks what they are doing right now, and Ryung is fighting her saying she was the teacher's first student, but Narin doesn't care about this. Soyeon asks him to stop them because it looks like a fight to death, and Narin uses her skill freezing and punched at her face. Hyunwoo says he can't stop them because it's not like they will listen to him. She asks him to do something before something really bad happens, and soon, he gets up and asks both of them to stop fighting angrily. They ask him why he was stopping them when he permitted them to spar, and he counter-questions them if it really looks like a spar. He asks them to go inside and think about what they have done until he gets back, and Soyeon asks him about Narin since she just went toe-to-toe with the Supreme Dragon in her successor's form. Hyunwoo tells her that she is his second student, and she is shocked that she has another student. She thinks things will get out of hand if they keep picking up more troublemakers like them, and if they fight, then she won't be able to stop them. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo reaches to Av's room and asks her where the artifact is which can give her information about the creator. She replies that it is in the 8th layer in Dimension 35. This is something she only found out recently from layers 1 to 9. The basic fundamentals are the same. Each layer has some form of civilization within it, and each layer is structured differently. For example, the 8th layer is divided into multiple dimensions, and layers 1 to 3 all have civilizations within them, but their territories are very small. Hyunwoo doesn't understand what she is talking about, and he asks her if he can enter the 8th layer. She replies that he can enter the right layer even now if he wants to, but in order to find the path that leads him there, he will need a few artifacts. She shows him the list of the artifacts he needs and says it won't take him long to collect all of them. She knows where 2 are located already, and the remaining 3 all belong to one person. She shows him the picture of 8lek and says the artifacts belong to him, and he smiles and says he doesn't think this is going to take long. At the same time, Ryung asks Narin about the mask on her shoulder, and she replies that her master gave it to her. She gets angry about this and says this can't happen because he cares too much about his mask, and she makes fun saying he never gave her presents. She says she can spend the rest of his life as a student receiving his teachings, but Ryung wants to kill her. They are about to start fighting when Hyunwoo appears there and says he told both to think about what they have done, but they are fighting again instead. He wonders if it was a mistake to bring Narin there. They seemed so similar that he thought they would get along, but they don't seem to be getting along at all. However, he says there is something he wants them both to do for him, and they are ready to hear his orders. He orders Ryung to go to Hong Kong, brings him the Simpass of the Blind, and asks Narin to go to Mexico and bring him the Silver Hour Hand. Narin asks her if he wants something else, and he asks her to recover those items as peacefully as possible. At the same time, 8lek is trying to spread false rumors about Hyunwoo, but no channel is ready to listen to him. He is ready to pay them whatever they need, but they say it is impossible whatever he pays. He angrily throws his cell phone on the ground and says nothing is working out against him. Meanwhile, his secretary informs him that he has a guest, but he asks him to get away since he doesn't have any meetings today. He replies that this is the person he doesn't tell him, and he is just giving him a heads up about something that is headed his way. Suddenly, the walls break, and Hyunwoo enters there asking him to shut up since his voice is making his ears bleed. 8lek is shocked to see him and asks him what he is doing in his house and what he has done to his wall, and he replies he did some research on him, and it turns out that not only he harassed him, but he has also been involved in other kinds of shady business like bribing people off and rigging auctions. 8-Lick gets scared and says he doesn't know what he is talking about, and he tells him about the most popular hunters magazine in the US, Killing Day. He takes the names of other news magazines and says he is not going to bother reading out the rest of the list. He throws the list in front of him, and 8-Lick asks him how he found out about all of that. He asks his secretary if this was him behind this all, and he replies he should have tried to be a better person. He shows Hyuna the list of the guild he contacted to try and defame him, and 8-Lick is shocked to see that he is screwed now. Hyuna says he wants to expose him to the public and ultimately end him, but he wants to make a deal with him. He heard that he is an avid collector of artifacts, and if he handed him over the game set he has been collecting for 10 years, he would be willing to put everything behind him. On the other side, Ryung reaches to the refining expert, Kwon, and he asks her what business the Supreme Dragon has there, and she asks him to hand her over the compass of the blind. She tries to refuse but gets scared to see her mood and says he will get it ready as quickly as possible.